Open Arizona now.
I just wanted to be a voice for my patients. These COVID patients who I'm taking care of every day, who are literally overflowing our ICUs, they would be urging these people to stay home for them and for their families. We saw the way that the healthcare workers in Denver were able to stand up like they did, and we were just so inspired by that, about the power in their silence, and we thought that is the kind of action that we want to have right now. It was heated. People were very fired up about what they had to say, and some of them really felt like nurses in particular were the enemy, but just sort of the healthcare system as a whole.
You're a virus.
We wanted healthcare workers' voices to be heard louder than all of this misinformation and fear. We see them and we disagree with them. We do not support the reopening of the city and the state in the way that they do. The longer we are divided like this and we are out in the public in thousands as they were with no masks on, putting people at risk and spreading this virus in that manner, the longer we're going to have to do this. USA!
You know, I would never wish this on anyone, but if they could just see what it's like for somebody to have to pass away via FaceTime with their family because they're not allowed in the hospital building, it's just the most devastating thing you've ever seen.
Welcome to the Politicrat. And it is Thursday, May the 21st, 2020. I'm Omar Moore. Today's question: are the people who do not wear masks in the United States more likely to be Trump supporters, or are they only just selfish? That's the topic to consider on this episode of The Politicrat. Before I start, a message to register to vote. For those of you in the United States who are listening to this, and hopefully you're listening to this before, well, September of 2020. My message to you right now, here on May the 21st, 2020, is to register to vote. There are a number of ways that you can do that. And at this time when there is a pandemic affecting all of us in various ways, many people aren't able to obviously go out and about because still there are businesses like the DMV that are closed in various states, even though states are reopening. Those of you who are fortunate enough to have a roof over your head and are indoors and are fortunate enough to have internet access and a computer or even your smartphone, be sure to register to vote at iwillvote.com. There are a number of other ways to register online. You can do it through a search engine by searching for your state. Just type in your state into a search engine and then type next to it the words Board of Elections. That should give you the website to your state or county Board of Elections. Or you can type in the state you live in and the words Secretary of State for your state that you live in. And you can get that website and you can register to vote there. Or very simply, as I say, you can try iwillvote.com. And you can also try rockthevote.org, or you could also try whenweallvote.org. I will be saying this from time to time, in fact, more than frequently than that, because it's important that you spread the message about the importance right now of registering to vote. So today's topic is, are the people who do not wear masks more likely to be supporters of Donald Trump, or are they only or just selfish people? Forgive me for asking that kind of question. It sounds like the kind of question that you'd hear on Maury Povich's show. You know who Maury Povich is. For those of you who don't know who Maury Povich is, he was a host of a show called A Current Affair back in the 1980s. Then he would go on to do a daytime talk show called Maury, Maury, his first name. Now, I don't know if that show still airs or not, because I'm not someone who watches daytime television talk or anything. But I'm sure that you can YouTube it and you can find it. And it would usually have the most sensational types of things, kind of along the lines of Jerry Springer or any of these shows that you've heard of perhaps, or have seen, or who you might have seen on YouTube. But I asked that question about whether or not someone's a Trump supporter sincerely, because the video that I played, which was a CNN report to start this episode, of course you couldn't see it, but you could hear it. But when you watch that video, all of the people who are not wearing masks are Trump supporters. They had their hats, the MAGA hats, they had the t-shirts, they had the signs with his name on them. They were clearly Donald Trump supporters. And the city and state that they were in was Phoenix, Arizona. That is one of the states that Donald Trump hopes to hold on to, in quotes, in this general election that is coming up in November. So it is worth asking the question, because it is a question that has been on my mind, quite frankly. Look, I recognize, and by the way, most of the people in that video who were not wearing the masks were almost all white. There were some Latinx, some Latinos, maybe one or two Latinas in that crowd of people who were demonstrating and asking for the state to open. But the fact of the matter is that what was clearly conveyed there was hostility. And it was the kind of hostility that you do see coming from a cross-section of supporters of Donald Trump. It's the kind of hostility that you saw at his rallies back in 2015 and 16 when they were physically attacking people. It's the kind of hostility that you see in these groups of pitchfork mobs who invade the state capital of Michigan in the city of Lansing, who were wearing, basically they were wearing MAGA hats, they were waving swastika flags, Confederate battle flags, they were holding their guns, and they had nooses. None of them were wearing masks. Now, I really do want to ask you this question. You've seen people in your neighborhood. You've seen people in your neighborhood who don't wear masks. You've seen people on your travels who don't wear masks. I've seen people who don't wear masks. We all have. Of the majority of the people that you see as you go about your travels, even on a limited basis, because some people aren't leaving the home, and I understand that, obviously, that's very clear. But of those of you who do go out and are able to go out and take a walk, and what do you typically see? Do you typically see most people around you wearing masks? Or do you typically see most people around you not wearing them? And I am curious, quite frankly, about the racial makeup of your observation. In other words, are most of the people who you see not wearing masks white? Are most of the people who you see not wearing masks black? Are most of the people who you see not wearing masks Latinx? Are most of the people you see not wearing masks Asian? How is that observation? Is that the observation? Because the people who you see not wearing masks, I've seen some black people not wearing them, but very, very few. In fact, most of the people that I have seen in San Francisco not wearing masks, and granted, San Francisco is an overwhelmingly white populated city. There's no question about that. So most of the people I have not, most of the people I've seen who are not wearing masks are white. Overwhelmingly. There are some white people who do wear masks. They tend to be more above the age of 50. Most of the people who I see wearing masks are over the age of 50 and white. And I do see black people of that age wearing masks as well. And nearly every black person I see is someone wearing a mask. There's only been 2 exceptions to that. Almost exclusively, I have seen here every person who is Asian wearing a mask. The vast majority, though, of the white people I observe here are not wearing masks. I've seen 6, 7, 8 people all together, all women, all without masks on, and certainly not wearing gloves either. And I get that the weather is getting warmer out here in San Francisco, California. But there is a virus that is still here, very much here. And the virus does not go away with the hot weather, contrary to Donald Trump's assertions. So I recognize that the people who don't wear masks in San Francisco are not necessarily going to be walking down the street wearing MAGA hats, wearing the emblems of Trump, waving swastikas or nooses or Confederate battle flags. But are they Trump supporters? Because everybody who's a Trump supporter doesn't wear a MAGA hat. Everyone who's a Trump supporter doesn't have a swastika or a Confederate battle flag or a Make America blah, blah, blah hat. Some of the individuals not wearing masks or gloves might be Bernie Sanders supporters. Some of the people not wearing masks might be Joe Biden supporters. Some of the people not wearing masks might be Elizabeth Warren supporters. Some of the people not wearing masks might have some kind of health issue that literally does seriously prevent them from doing that. Whether it's being an asthmatic is a possibility that might hinder that. But I wonder if there would be specially fitted masks for people who have that condition. Maybe somebody who is a medical doctor could fill me in on that on Twitter at the popcorn REEL. But it just makes me wonder. In that video, nobody was wearing a mask. The video that you heard the audio from, that I played to start this episode. Nobody wore a mask. Nobody wore a mask at all. Is it fair to say, or is it even fair to try to make an assumption that the people that you see on the streets around you who are not wearing masks are also perhaps most likely to be Trump supporters? Or is it that they are selfish? I think obviously people who do not wear masks are very selfish people to begin with. There's no question about the fact of that. They are selfish. The question is, can you tie that selfishness to their political affiliation? Or should I say, can you tie a political affiliation to their selfishness? I don't know. Because there are selfish people everywhere, regardless of the political party that they may be a member of, or regardless of the politician that they vote for or support. I think those things tend to go hand in hand, depending on what the campaign or the office or the size of the office. You probably wouldn't call yourself a supporter of a local politician. You probably wouldn't call yourself the supporter of a dog catcher. You wouldn't go around saying, well, I'm a dog catcher supporter. I'm a supporter of this person. She catches dogs. She's a dog catcher. So I support her. I don't know. Maybe you would. You tend to say that more of presidential candidates than you do of local politicians or school board members. You don't, when you vote for your school board, your local school board, you don't say, well, say if Wanda Jackson is running for school board, you don't say, do you, that I'm a Wanda Jackson supporter for school board? Maybe you do. But if, say, Nancy Pelosi is running for president and you planned to vote for her, you would say, wouldn't you not, that you are a Pelosi supporter? I guess you would. I think you would. But the question again, and I really intend this with the utmost seriousness, is to ask, are the people you see without masks on, are they more likely to be supporters of Donald Trump?
Are there legal consequences for not respecting social distancing? Well, the answer depends on intent. People across the U.S. are facing terrorism charges for threatening to spread COVID-19. In Texas, a teen was charged with making a terroristic threat after she allegedly claimed to be willfully spreading coronavirus in a series of Snapchat videos. A man in New Jersey was charged with making a terroristic threat after he allegedly coughed on a grocery store employee after she told him he was standing too close to her. Police say he told the woman he had coronavirus. And in Missouri, a man was charged with making a terroristic threat after posting a video of himself licking a row of deodorant sticks for purchase in a Walmart, according to police. The Justice Department released a memo in March saying the virus meets the criteria for a biological agent, and threatening to spread it or use COVID-19 as a weapon against Americans could constitute a terrorist threat. But not all state and local jurisdictions are using the full power of that memo. Similar cases led to charges like breach of peace, assault, and other misdemeanors. In South Carolina, a woman was charged with aggravated breach of peace and food tampering after she reportedly coughed and licked her hands before touching several food items at a grocery store. And in Florida, a man was charged with aggravated assault after allegedly coughing on a cashier and claiming that social distancing precautions are getting out of hand. Federally, using a biological agent as a weapon could land you in jail for up to 10 years, and if a death occurs, charges could escalate to life in prison.
The question again, are people who do not wear masks more likely to be Trump supporters? I'm dropping the selfish part of the inquiry because it's clear that people who do not wear masks are selfish. In this day and age when you have, in the United States at least, almost 100,000 people dead from coronavirus, COVID-19. To not wear a mask, I think, is selfish, sinful, and lazy. And one thing you can say, three things you can say about Donald Trump is that he is selfish, sinful, and lazy. He doesn't wear a mask. He hasn't worn a mask. As of the time I'm recording this, he has not worn one. He has walked into public places without one. Even into places that require masks, he has not worn one. And that audio you just heard from a second CNN report was about people who have, over the last couple of months or so, been doing some very sick, depraved, criminal things during this pandemic and lockdown here in the United States. And one thing that jumps out at me as I listened to that audio is that nearly all the states that the reporter, his name Polo Sandoval from CNN, mentions are all states that are controlled by Republicans. All states that Donald Trump won, except one. The states I heard were South Carolina, Texas, Missouri, those are among the states I heard. And also New Jersey, which Donald Trump did not win, Was the only one he didn't win out of those 4. And I think there may have been another one. It may have been Florida in there. Florida, I think, was also in there. Donald Trump won Florida. So 4 of the 5 states, and I may have misheard it, but I thought I did hear Florida. 4 of those 5 states are Republican-controlled states. Is it fair, quote unquote, to make those assumptions? And that the people who are doing these really depraved things that you heard in that report, is it fair to say that all of those individuals or many of those people's actions can also be referenced back to the fact that they may be Trump supporters? They could all be Democrats for all I know. Republicans certainly do not have a monopoly on bad behavior. Trump supporters do not have a monopoly on bad behavior. Bad behavior is endemic to all kinds of people and all kinds of segments of societies and all kinds of political affiliations. This goes deeper, quite frankly, than a political affiliation. These are human traits: selfishness, a lack of empathy or empathy, cruelty. These are all human things. They may not be humane things. Cruelty is certainly not humane, but it is a human trait. Not one that I endorse or espouse, but there are people who exercise that trait. We all have the capacity to walk down a street and not wear a mask. We all have the capacity to go into a grocery store or a supermarket and lick deodorants. But we all don't do that kind of thing because it's not the kind of behavior that is not only socially acceptable, it is just flat out wrong. It is unhygienic. It is dirty. It is disgusting. I think after a while, it's a fair point to make, or a question to ask is, obviously, or just to ponder this, obviously there are issues of stability psychologically in people who would do the kinds of things you just heard on that audio. There's obviously some questions to ask of anybody beyond their cruelty as to their stability when they go into a supermarket and literally lick deodorant. Or somebody who coughs on somebody. There have been cases of this all over the United States, by the way, and it is a minority of individuals, a small group. But of course, the media, as it loves to do, focuses on that group. And look, I'm playing right into that as well by talking about it. There's the focus on that small group of people who do the most outrageous thing. And then that gets blown up as if it's a massive majority of people. Well, the stories you just heard, and one of them, which was in that video, was one that wasn't talked about. In fact, the very start of the audio you heard just then featured a guy who literally wiped his nose into the clothing of a supermarket employee in Michigan. That was a state that Donald Trump won in 2016. But the part of what I just said that should alarm you is not that Donald Trump won the state. The part that should really alarm you is the part where I said a guy walked into a store, and on that video that I just played, that you just heard, he literally leaned in to the female employee and wiped his nose on her clothing. He did not have a mask on. That's a story you can actually look up. She had asked him to put on a mask. You're not supposed to come in here without a mask on. And then he says in the story that I read, and I forget where I read it, but you can look it up. Okay, then, well, I don't have a mask, but this will do. I'll use this. And that's when he leans down and wipes his nose in her clothing. It's caught on a security video camera in the store. Disgusting. Totally disgusting. What is going on with us? I guess that's the bigger question here. Even beyond the political affiliation or lack thereof, what is going on with us? We have people in Michigan showing up at the state capitol, threatening a governor, a female governor, with all the misogyny and the anger and the evil and the racism, with their guns and their nooses and their swastikas and their Confederate battle flags. What do you think that's about? I just gave you my answer. It's clearly about racists and misogynists and their agenda to have a movement that's very violent and one that brings back enslavement, quite frankly, and dominance. They want to go back to 1952. I think that's what Donald Trump wants to do. What is it with a person that goes into a store, a dollar store, in Michigan again? Michigan is one of the most mentioned states in this episode. What is it about someone that goes into Michigan in a store in Flint, Michigan, and when asked to put on a mask, she spits in his face, the supermarket security guard's face. A woman spits in the guard's face, leaves the store with her daughter, and then returns, 20 minutes later, her husband returns with her son. And the younger man shoots and kills the security guard. In America. What is that about? Is that about Donald Trump? Or is that about something else? Is that about Donald Trump? Or is that about something deeper? What is it about a woman in Dana Point, California, one of the most affluent parts of the country, quite frankly, who goes into a store and is told that she's got to wear a mask, and then she is given the option of either wearing a mask or allowing a store employee to buy or select the things she wants to buy and then come curbside and have her pay for those things. Who then says, I don't want you to buy or select for me the things. I don't want to give you a list of things because I'm going to buy things that I don't want you to see because they're private. Which does not make sense. Because even when you check out, either self-service checkout where there is someone supervising that, or obviously with a cashier, your items are going to be seen. So the bogus excuse of, I don't want you to see some of the items I'm buying, it doesn't wash and it doesn't make sense. But what would that be about where someone just refuses to follow a directive. It's not about being someone following something malicious. It's a store policy in many parts of California, and I'm sure in other states, where if you do not wear a mask, you will not be allowed in. There is a virus going on that's killing thousands and thousands, and I dare say hundreds of thousands of people in this country. I think the number, I've said this before, is much, much lower than we really know. I think that right now, for example, I have no facts behind this. This is just an opinion. I think that there's at least 200,000 people dead in this country alone from this virus. And I've given the reasons why I've said that. I'm not going to go through all those reasons again. But what would provoke someone to video that encounter to refuse the options that were given to that person? The policy is simple. No mask, no service. It's the same policy as when people say no shoes, no shirt, no service. You don't see people standing up outside those establishments and saying, we want to come in, and you don't see that. So why would someone make a commotion and make a video and threaten to sue? I'm going to sue you, when the store manager just says to her, you have two options. Either you wear a mask or you can stay here. Give us a list of the things you want. We will get those for you, and you can then pay for them out here. What is that about? A political agenda? I would tend to say yes. But what do you think? In fact, what do you think about all of this? Why do Americans do things like this? I mean, there is cruelty in other countries. There are cruel people in other countries. There are people who will fist fight you in this country and others if you tell them to put on a mask. There are people who will do physical violence beyond fist fighting with you, as I've just outlined. Nobody should be losing their life regarding something like this, or any other thing for that matter, including this virus. And if we all take the simple steps to wear a mask, we will be protecting ourselves, but even more importantly, we will be protecting others. And no matter where we live, and no matter who we support politically, don't we want a healthier, safer, better educated society? Thanks for listening to this edition of The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.